although the discussion starts with a cost discussion. From a chief exec point of view, I know the Indian environment has been such over the last few years that companies have been growing far too quickly. They've had to find capital to invest in their own business. How important is it that an outsourcing partner, especially in the shared services side, providing services, actually makes a part of that capital capital investment in facilities which a lot of companies which are going pretty fast can avoid by transferring that to a shared services provider and still get the desired sort of service you need at the right quality, at the right culture, with the right culture, a forward-looking service. So how important is avoidance of capital expenditure as a decision criteria?
Very, very important. One of the tenets is you should always run your business on very low fixed costs and high variable costs. An absolute fundamental rule in today's fast-changing world. Okay, because nobody is bothered whether you have the best-looking office or 25,000 square feet or 50,000 square feet. Nobody. People are asking, do you satisfy consumer needs and wants? If you're doing that, that's fine. Where you come from doesn't matter. Like for example, the American consumer is not saying that something outsourced to the Philippines or India is not in his interest. He's fine as long as you do it right. He doesn't know which office you sit in also.
Yeah, because we've gone and sold that story to a lot of companies.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Here's the thing. In the outsourcing industry, very rarely, I know there are some industries where it happens, very rarely does the consumer visit your premise, especially in a digital world. Okay, so I won't worry about it.
Shiv, one of the things which we wanted to take your insights in the thing which you presented is really in terms of outsourcing and costs and so on. How do you see, if I just look at the focus on the flip side of the coin, are organizations focused on process, what Sunil was initiating? How well are they focused on business process? We talked about culture and the focus on what we need to do differently. So how do you see our organizations focused on business process while they do the repetitive processes outsourced, but they still have to deal with business processes?
That's a good question. Okay, I'm possibly in the minority group when I talk about this, and my answer might not really suit you and your forum, but I must tell you what I hold dear to my heart and what I believe in. The first is process is necessary and important, but you cannot be a slave to process. Okay? Peter Drucker said this, I think in the 1930s. He said, culture eats process for breakfast. And I'm a great believer in that. Okay? If you have the right culture, teams will figure out how to do it. Now, why has process become such an important word in the last 15-20 years? That's because most companies have become matrix organizations. A matrix organization, its fundamental pivot is collaboration. And its fundamental lifeline is process. Okay. So if you really want to master a matrix, you have to get process right. If you look at the history of organizations and structures, the first set of organizations were all functional organizations. The second set of organizations were business unit, product or profit center organizations, which was the innovation Drucker bought with Sloan and General Motors. The third set of organizations were category and geography. And putting all three together, today we have a matrix organization. So in a matrix organization, a process becomes very important. So who are the people who are very, very high on process? European companies are very high on process. Germany is a rigid one for process. Japanese companies are very high on process. But I believe you need a bit of entrepreneurship, a bit of flexibility and some degree of process. Okay? Because just following in many companies, you just follow the process and you fail, it's okay as long as you followed the process. But that's not the reason for the business. Okay, so in my book, you need some basic, like for example, if I look at Pepsico, what are the processes we definitely need? We need an innovation stage gate process. No doubt about it. You need a sales and operating planning process. No doubt about it. You need a talent management process. No doubt about it. Okay? So there are 3-4 critical processes which are important in every company. Okay? The others, Okay, fine. You just need to work it through and make it happen. If you just focus only on process, you will take away the initiative of people. And then you'll have very high attrition because people will say, there's no flexibility in this job. I'm a slave to the process. What am I doing? I'm adding no value. That's why you see very high turnover in the BPO industry. That's why you see very high turnover in the retail industry. Because you're making your employees slaves to process. There's no imagination left. So you really have to balance this carefully, especially with today's employee.
One more question we will take and then we'll get the panel to start. Because Shiv will be part of the panel anyway, just to let you know.
I think that the part on outsourcing of culture that you talked about, that was really interesting. Whenever we have an outsourcing discussion, typically it's costs, typically it's processes, typically it's your capability in doing it here. You got this cultural dimension here. So what's your experience been with Pepsico when you outsource? How do you match your culture? What do you do to do that?
Yeah. We try to explain, the people who outsource this, the Kim finance team, etc., if they're outsourcing to an IBM or whoever it is, they really try, they go to great lengths to explain what we want done and how we want it done. Okay, we like that. And every time there are deviations, we sit down and discuss it with them, cross tab, correlate and say, hey, these are the lessons from this. Why has it happened? Why was this deviation and etc. So we try to ensure that they really imbibe as much of the culture that we want as possible. That's the only way you can do it. No other way. It's like, even in your, let's take household, you get work done by people, your house staff. Okay, what do you try to do? You try to ensure that they live the culture of the house, right? That's what you do.
I have a provocative view on process
Go ahead.
versus entrepreneurial. If I go to the airport and I have to check into an airline, for my aircraft, I'm normally told to check in 40 minutes before the flight sort of takes off. Do you think the agent who's checking me in, if I'm sort of 5 minutes late, should check me in? Or should he or she follow the process?
Okay.
So I'm saying, I think the point I'm making is that I'll take inspiration from your earlier comment around culture, which is what we are talking about, and really kind of to define where you need to be process focused and where you need to be entrepreneurial.
Okay.
And there could be parts where we probably need to be sticklers to the process because you're not compromising things like health and safety, so on and so forth. So
yeah, so I'll give you. It's a great question, and I can give you 2-3 personal examples. Once when it worked, once when it didn't work, and on the second time when it didn't work, I was not unhappy with it. Okay, but I'll explain what. So I was flying from London to Sydney via Singapore. Okay, this was 2009 or 10. Okay, I landed in Singapore at 9:15 in the night, and the connecting flight was at 10. Okay, because the flight was delayed. Okay, and I was flying Singapore Airlines right through. I got down again, said, look, I have to connect. He said, 45 minutes manifest, Mr. Shivakumar. No way. Sorry. So he said, take tomorrow's morning flight to Sydney. I said, but I have a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. I can't do this. He looked at me and said, do you have baggage? I said, no. He said, okay, fine. He called the buggy. He called the captain and said, one more passenger coming. Don't close the door. Okay? And he zipped me through. Right off. And he really understood because I was not going to slow down the plane anyway. Okay? He adjusted for those 2-3 minutes. He called the buggy, made me sit in it and said, go straight off. You're a hand baggage passenger? Fine. Excellent. I got on the plane, next morning I was in the meeting. And I really wrote to them saying, thank you very much. Excellent. Okay. Second example, similar one. Since you said airline. 2 months ago, okay, my assistant said I was going to, Ahmedabad on the morning flight. Indigo was at 7:15 or something. So I said, okay, 7:15. I got up at 5 o'clock. I was fooling around at home, doing nothing. Did some email, etc. I said 7:15. Okay, I land up at some 6:30 or something. Okay, and 6:30 or something. But I actually landed at 6:10. Okay, I went ahead because the car had come, etc. So I went and showed the person. He said, "Sir, this flight is at 6:40. What are you doing?" I said, "The ticket says 7:20." And they said, "Yeah, that's true, but we just changed our winter schedule, and now it is 6:40. It's not 7:20 anymore." I said, "But nobody told me." They said, sir, we are calling you and you didn't reply. I said, look, that's not a good excuse, guys. You're calling my assistant, you're calling me, that's not right. Either you should send me a mail, something or the other. But to be fair, that young lady, okay, she knew that I flew a lot, etc. She called again the captain. And she said, look, I have a regular passenger. Okay, he's got only hand baggage. What is this thing? Is there any way I can put him on the flight? The pilot said, no, I've already pushed the ramp back. Okay, she tried her best. Okay, but at least while the mistake was there, so I was happy at least she tried her best. I'll give you the ultimate example now. Nothing to do with airline, hotel. Okay, and I'll talk about the concept later on. This was 2 years ago. I come from Dubai, I land in Chennai, I go to Taj, June 28th, 2013, exact date. Okay, I'll go to Taj Coromandel. I noticed when I go into my room that one of the buttons of my jacket has gone off. Okay, obviously in the flight somewhere, I've brushed it, it's gone off. So this is at 10 o'clock in the night when I have checked into the hotel. So I call the lobby manager, a chap called Gurmeet Singh, who's now working for a hotel in Delhi. So I said, hey, I need some help. He said, I'll come to your room. So he landed up. I said, Gurmeet, I've lost this button, I need this. And he said, when do you need it, sir? I said, tomorrow evening I have to do a similar session, a speech at Madras Management Association on excellence. 6 o'clock I'll leave the hotel, I need it by then. He said, leave it with me. I said, okay, I'll give it to him. Okay, next morning my team came, I had to go to the market. When I was leaving after breakfast, I asked Gurmeet, hey Gurmeet, how's it going? He said, leave it with me. I said, okay. Went, came back at 5 o'clock. He was not there. Okay, he was somewhere. I went straight to my room. Sure enough, my jacket was there with the button stitched. Okay. So then I went to do my session. Okay. And before I went to do my session, I bumped into him in the corridor, in the lobby. So I asked him, hey Gurmeet, what did you do? This is magic. He said, sir, this brand, I called this brand across the country. They didn't have this button. This brand doesn't exist in Chennai. I called Bombay, they didn't have the button. I called Delhi, they had the button. One outlet had the button. I told them, I sent them a photograph of your button on mobile phone. They got it. They said, yes, we can match this. This is the same jacket. They took it. I took the button, sent it to Jet Airways, got it by courier in the afternoon, and stitched it and gave it to you. Now, no process will ever tell you to do that. So here's my point of view. When you want to truly delight customers, you have to give employees the freedom. We try to standardize everything because we want consistency. But if you want delight, you can't standardize. Now, that's what I'd really like you guys to think about. How do you ensure that your employees have joy so that they go beyond and hence can delight consumers?
So now we will